Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm drawing Ocean in this video. You guys have been requesting for me to do a little art tutorial, so I kind of did one. I chose to do it through screen recording just because I knew this one would take me so long to complete. Let me get it. I think it was over 10 hours for me to do this one. Basically 11 hours. That was tracked in Procreate. So this is a long video that I could press down. It was like hours of footage. I didn't even include the sketch process. That took forever. The whole thing took so long, and I didn't include the background because the background was like so complicated. I did like a little ocean theme for Ocean. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys like how I color, my rendering process, like with the skin, the jeans. You guys know I love jeans. The shirt, the hair, everything. Literally the only thing I didn't include was the sketch because like I said, it took forever. If you guys want a video of my sketching process, I can make one, but this one I was just like, I'm gonna have to do this like with my own time so I can like think about what I'm gonna make because it was so complicated. The reference, I will pop a little image of the reference. It is so cute. It's of this doll that this designer made, or this doll maker made, and I just loved like the post that I was like, oh, this is gonna be so perfect for Ocean. So with my coloring process, as you can see, I use the lasso tool. I mainly use this tool now just because it is way easier than going in with like a brush, like any brush. You can just go through with the lasso tool. I used to sleep on the lasso tool just because I didn't have a steady hand in Procreate or with my iPad, and I would be messing up so much. I was just like, oh my god, it's so much easier to just use a brush. But now I understand. I'm like, okay, lasso tool is that girl. Okay, so I use a lasso tool for the coloring process to outline everything. All of this is on a clipping mask, so I do the base color, which is usually the skin tone, and then I do a clipping mask for the jeans, you know, the hair, all that stuff. And then after I'm finished with coloring each like individual item, so like the clothing, the hair, the accessories, I will merge the layer. And then I think you're gonna see soon, I'm gonna cut out where the eyes are. I'm gonna cut that out, and then I'm gonna, underneath that whole layer, underneath the sketching and the coloring layer, I'm gonna put in the eyes. And this is so when I animate, all I have to do is move the iris around for the animation. Looking at this is like so annoying because it looks like I'm doing this so fast, but really like this whole process was so time consuming. Like this was probably like 20 minutes for me to do all of these steps, but like it's going by so fast. But anyway, for the shading, what I do is I take the base color. So for her skin, for example, I'll take the base color, and I know people tend to go more red, but sometimes I don't. I really don't think I went more red with her. I think I just saturated it a little bit and then went down a bit for the base shading. You can kind of tell because it's a little gray. I may have moved red probably a little bit actually, but not by that much. I used to oversaturate like my shading in the beginning, and I noticed that my end product would be like hella saturated, and sometimes like that's just not necessary for the look I'm trying to go for, especially with this drawing, just because it is it has a blue background, and I kind of wanted to not have too much contrast because I have already a warm tone on her skin, and then like the yellow and stuff, like I didn't want it to be too much of a contrast with like adding reds and stuff like that. I decided to like tone down the skin tone a lot, so she's a little bit, but I kind of always draw Ocean with like a little bit of a neutral tone. I don't really use like heavy saturated colors for her skin tone anyway. Now I'm working on the shading for the clothing. With the hat that she has, I kind of wanted to incorporate the blue background like for the shading and the coloring with a bit of a warm tone for the hat because I wanted it to be like a cream color. In the reference, there was kind of a blue hue that was hitting the shadow of the hat, so I kind of wanted to mimic that as well. You can kind of see me trying to do that at this stage. In the beginning stage of my like rendering process, it's like so messy. Like my rendering is not the neatest in the beginning. I always tell clients that too, because like I'll show them my progress and it's like it's really messy, so they'll be like, oh, is like it gonna be like this, or the proportions and stuff like that. I change the proportions throughout this like so many times, just because I like to lay like my bases, like I lay the shading, I lay like the light colors, the dark colors, but like all the detailing is when I do like refinement. So like right here it's like really messy, like I'm just adding blue shades, warm shades, trying to see what works with the piece, like, and not like really like thinking too hard about it, like not pressuring myself to be perfect, just trying to see what works on the image. And I think that's probably why whenever I draw like these pieces and like I try to record, I feel like so much pressure to make it perfect, just because like I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I try to like be the opposite of that, like just lay whatever feels right and then like refine in the end. Because when I record, I just feel like I put so much pressure. I'm just like, oh no, like I don't want to look, I don't know, like I don't want my process to be messed up, and then like I feel like I'm drawing too slow or not fast enough. But like I'm slowly getting used to like recording my process and like trying to put like tutorials out, because I do want to make more video tutorials on how I do my process, because I think it can be beneficial in teaching people how to draw, because that's how I learned to draw, is like watching other people draw and like seeing their process, how they use the program and things like that. Okay, so right here you can see I'm using lighter shades. With the lighter shades, I try to go more like in the yellow tones a little bit. Sometimes I don't, I'll use like pink tones, especially with dark skin. You can get away with using different tones. One of the colors I like to use on dark skin is purple. You can use like a light purple for the highlights and it looks so pretty. But for this, I wanted to use like a cream color. I wanted to start with the cream color and then like maybe go in with like some warm tones. Okay, and then I think the most complicated part of this drawing is the vitiligo. With Ocean, she does have a lot of vitiligo marks. So with the vitiligo, I do a hard light layer and then I'll do that all over like where her marks are. I'll usually use like a pinkish pinkish light white tone, and then I'll put that down with the hard light. It makes it like a tan color, and then I'll desaturate it and then I'll color on top of that layer. So like the hard light isn't like just the hard light layer and then like that's it. I go on top to add shading, because before when I would do vitiligo, I used to do the hard light layer and then I would just leave it alone. Like whatever it looked like, that was what it was. But I'll do shading on top just so that everything looks cohesive, and then especially with makeup, it just looks better if you draw on top. It is more complicated, more time consuming, but the end result, it just looks way better. Okay, I think that's enough explaining. I pretty much went over everything like with my whole process. I may pop in for the hair process. It's kind of self-explanatory, but I may say a few like tips and tricks, depends on how I'm feeling.